Who are you, really? Not your name, not your job, not the roles you play in society. Beyond all that, who is the true self that lies within? This is a question many struggle with their whole lives. But one young monk named Kenji would discover that the answer isn't found in words or labels, but in something much deeper. In a quiet village nestled between tall, misty mountains, there was a monastery known for its peaceful surroundings and wise Zen master, Master Hakuin. People traveled from faraway lands to seek guidance on the great questions of life, hoping to unlock the mysteries of the universe. But for one monk, the question that troubled him the most was the simplest: who am I? Kenji had been at the monastery for 5 years, practicing meditation and following the teachings diligently. Yet, as each day passed, he felt a growing void inside. The practices gave him moments of calm, but a deeper unrest lingered. He still didn't know his true self. Every time he closed his eyes to meditate, his thoughts scattered in all directions like autumn leaves blown by the wind. One evening, after another restless meditation session, Kenji approached Master Hakuin, who was sitting calmly by a stream near the temple. "Master," Kenji began, his voice filled with frustration, "I have been here for years, and though I follow the practices, I still feel lost. Who am I? What is my true self? No matter how much I meditate or study, the answer remains out of reach." Master Hakuin looked up from the water, his eyes twinkling with a mix of humor and wisdom. "Kenji," he said softly, "do you believe that the answer can be found with more effort? Do you think the true self can be grasped by chasing it?" Kenji hesitated. "I don't know, but if not through effort, how will I ever discover who I really am?" Master Hakuin smiled. "Tomorrow I have a task for you. I want you to go to the forest behind the monastery and spend the entire day there, but with one condition. You are not to speak a word, not even to yourself in your thoughts." Kenji frowned, confused. "But how will that help me discover my true self?" "Sometimes," Hakuin said gently, "to find yourself, you must stop trying to define yourself." The next morning, Kenji set out into the forest as instructed. The trees towered over him, their leaves creating a canopy that filtered the sunlight into soft, golden beams. He walked in silence, his footsteps barely making a sound on the forest floor. At first, his mind buzzed with thoughts, questions, doubts, frustrations, all swirling around in an endless cycle. But as the hours passed, something began to change. Kenji noticed the birds singing overhead, their melodies pure and unaffected by anything but the present moment. He watched as a squirrel darted between trees, quick and focused, with no hesitation in its movements. The wind whispered through the leaves, filling the air with a soothing rustle. Slowly, the noise in his mind began to quiet down, replaced by the simple awareness of everything around him. As the day went on, Kenji found a quiet spot by a stream. The water flowed steadily, clear and sparkling under the sunlight. He sat down on a rock, watching the current, and for the first time in what felt like years, his mind was still. There were no questions, no self-doubt, only the sound of the water, the feeling of the cool breeze on his skin, and the presence of the moment. Suddenly, Kenji realized something profound. The forest was alive, but it was not questioning its existence. The birds did not wonder who they were. The trees did not seek to define themselves. The stream did not struggle to understand its purpose. Everything simply was. The forest had no need for labels, and in that moment, neither did he. A wave of peace washed over him, and for a brief, beautiful moment, Kenji felt what it was like to simply be, without the need to analyze, explain, or identify. He felt as though the boundaries between himself and the forest had dissolved, leaving only pure awareness. In that instant, Kenji glimpsed his true self, not as something separate or defined, but as part of the greater whole, connected to everything around him. As the sun began to set, Kenji returned to the monastery. He felt lighter, calmer, and more grounded than he had in years. That night he sat in meditation, but this time it was different. There was no inner struggle, no search for answers. He sat in silence, breathing in and out, simply aware of his presence. The next morning he went to see Master Hakuin. "I understand now, Master," Kenji said, bowing deeply. "All these years I was searching for my true self, as though it was something to be found or identified. But the truth is, the self cannot be captured in words or thoughts. It is not a thing to possess, but an experience of being, an awareness of the present moment, free from the need to define it. Master Hakuin smiled, his eyes gleaming with approval. You have touched on a great truth, Kenji. The self you are seeking is not a fixed identity, but rather the awareness of existence itself. When you stop trying to grasp it, when you let go of the need to understand it intellectually, it reveals itself naturally. You are not the labels, the roles, or the thoughts you attach to yourself. You are simply the presence that witnesses it all. Kenji felt a deep sense of gratitude wash over him. Thank you, Master. I feel as though a great weight has been lifted. I no longer need to search for who I am, because I already am. Hakuin nodded. Indeed. True self-awareness is not about finding an answer. It is about living in the experience of each moment, fully aware, without judgment or attachment. When you are present, the question of who am I becomes irrelevant, because the answer is simply, I am. Kenji left the Master's presence with a newfound understanding. From that day forward, he no longer searched for his identity or tried to define himself through roles, titles, or thoughts. Instead, he embraced each moment with full awareness, knowing that his true self was not something to be found, but something to be lived. And in that quiet, peaceful acceptance, Kenji discovered what he had been seeking all along. So, who are you? Perhaps the answer is simpler than you think.